In honor of Women's Day this month, we did a special episode focused on women in manufacturing. And we're delighted to welcome Kim Paxton-Hagner and Stephanie Jackson, third generation owners of Kwik, the global leader in bag closure, manufacturing, and proudly based in Yakima. Sarah led this conversation and talked to Stephanie and Kim about what it was like to be thrust into a role their father never intended for them to assume, what they did to not only get up to speed, but to thrive in that role, the dynamics of a generational family run business, and career advice for other women in manufacturing. All right, let's dive right in.
Tell us a little bit about your background and your journey with Kwik.
Hello, thank you guys for having us. First of all, my name is Stephanie Jackson, and I am one of the three co-owners of Kwik Corporation. And to tell just a little background, even of our company, it's a 70-year-old family business, manufacturing. It makes a product that most people have used at least once in their lifetime. And it's that little plastic closure at the end of your bread is the most recognizable place. And our grandfather invented that back in 1954. We are now, again, 70 years later, we are the third generation of ownership. And a little background on myself is I am 57. I have been a small business owner most of my career. Our father, just out of, protection, I would say, never brought his daughters into the company. And so our journey just actually began with Kwik in 2015.
And I'm Kimberly Paxton-Hagner. I'm one of the other co-owners, a little bit younger than Stephanie, but we'll keep that to ourselves. My college career was in rangeland science and ecology, and then segued into graphic design work professionally, came into Kwik with very limited understanding of how the manufacturing business worked, and especially our business, as Stephanie mentioned. Our father thought that women didn't have a head for business, and so he didn't think to bring us in.
What was that transition like? And is that when you guys officially took over ownership, or did you just kind of start getting your feet wet in 2015?
Well, that's a good question, because 2015 was quite a hectic year because our father did not have a succession plan. So in January of 2015, when he passed away suddenly, everything changed abruptly for Kwik, and it was just that, very abrupt for everybody. We were fortunate enough to have an interim CEO that was able to step in. He had actually worked as a CPA for our business and had, therefore, decades of history with Kwik. And I think our challenge was also a personal one. We hadn't been working in this type of business, so we had doubts about our ability to add value, even at the board level. And we wanted to really make sure that we do right by all the employees. Some of them have been there 40 plus years. And so we had that question for ourselves, are we going to be able to do right by the employees and be able to, in this very new role for a business where the owners had always worked in the business, to be able to sit at the governance level and still be able to effectively manage from the seats we were in. And I think also another challenge was the fact that it took time for everybody to get used to this new reality, but then also we're very different owners. So we came in with our own experience looking at a system that we hadn't worked in. So we had very fresh eyes. And so it was a challenge in a way because we needed to listen and learn and understand why things were done the way they were. But it also was a challenge because we were very quick to question why things were being done the way they were. And that eventually led to it being a plus. But Stephanie was very good at asking a lot of questions, and it helped us learn faster, and it also helped us push for change.
Did you find that there were any tools or specific resources to get you guys up to speed? Because obviously you guys had to learn quickly, right?
I would say one of the first things was we were introduced by our interim CEO to some family businesses who were running their family businesses in fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh generations even. And it gave us a real insight about that we could do this from a governance level and again, affect change, carry a vision, really be engaged. And so that was for me a very poignant mark for going forward. I always rely on this saying of you got to see it to be it. And talking to other family business owners ahead of us in their generations really was beneficial to me.
And I think for me, I'm very much a, learn. I love to dive into things and gain experience through books and reading. And so I was able to go to, before I started my board chair position with Kwik, I went to the Kellogg School of Management and their family business governance courses. And that was exceptional because not only are you with professionals that understand good governance at the board level, but they also understand the unique beast that is family businesses. And also you get a chance to interact with other family business owners that are in various stages, be able to talk to somebody who's ahead of you, like fourth generation owners. It's so different than when the owner operator is in charge of the business. You have different points of not just interest, but responsibility. You need to keep the family engaged in the business is a big plus for family businesses. It's one of the superpowers. They have kind of a long-term view of the business, and that can give them an edge. But if the family is not engaged, that can also be a challenge for the business. So it was great to learn about some of the pluses and minuses they had gone through as a family, as well as to learn from the professionals there. So that was great. And then also for myself, I became a member of a female board chair peer group. That was exceptional because I was able to learn from real-time experiences at each meeting, what they were having challenges with, what was working really well, and also their unique experience as women sitting on a board and in the chair position.
So being a family-owned company, because you mentioned you spoke to other families and just kind of how they navigate, what was the key thing you learned from just the whole experience of taking over and now running it today, and also preparing your next generation?
I would say what I have learned and will pass on and have started already with my own daughter, who's 23 of the fourth generation, is that my experiences and knowledge outside of this industry are very transferable, meaning, you can, the doubt can seep in that I haven't been in this industry, how can I, be governing and leading? And that is one thing that I absolutely am passing on to my own daughter, as well as trust your gut. I have found out doing this, something that's a little bit more unknown, that I have good instinct. Out of all the sisters, I am definitely the one that talks about the elephant in the room. I have no problems asking courageous questions and just with no ego, and just to say, hey, help me understand this, and just ask for help.
And I think the other thing we're teaching the fourth generation, which is a small generation. It's my niece Bella, and then my son Cooper, who's also in his early 20s. But we're letting them know that, just like Stephanie mentioned, you bring, no matter what your experience is in business and in life, you bring a unique experience to whatever seat you're sitting in. And for the family business, having an outsider's perspective can be a real advantage. And even just any business in manufacturing, having people that have worked in different departments, be able to transfer laterally inside the business and work in a new department. It's amazing what value they bring because they just see with a wider lens.
You may not know the business very well, but you have instincts. And some things feel right and some things feel, not right or feel different. What were the things that struck you the most when you first joined, and what did you do about
A couple things come up for me. First of all, what has always felt right and continues is we have some amazing employees that love their work. They are loyal to the company. They feel great pride in making a great product, and really solving our customers' problems. And so you just feel that. You feel that in the company. My dad started that and really treated everyone like family. And so that is there and continues to be there. One of the things that I questioned right away was we are a global company. We have 6 plants around the world, and our plants really weren't talking to each other, very siloed. And so again, that's the way it's always been, obviously wasn't, when we came in, that started to be questioned of like, would it not make sense that all plant managers, share best practices and what's going well and what are their customers, challenged with? And so just getting those questions asked to help start the breakdown of those silos.
And I think quickly after that, we realized that there were silos in Kwik, but also my dad very much had a command and control culture where most of the answers the best answers sit only at the top. And we very much had always valued cultures that we were in our, outside work experiences where it was more collaborative, where people got a chance to lift up ideas. Everybody was thought to have something, unique to add that could maybe make the idea or customer experience better. And so we very much wanted to figure out how could we get that culture there at Kwik, because we had a culture of care. People cared deeply about each other. They loved working together. They cared about the customers, but we had little silos even where production was considered to be a female only atmosphere, and it was men that worked in engineering, and engineering and assembly didn't really talk to each other. And it was really interesting, even though they worked right next to each other. So over time, we very much pushed to have a culture that was much more connected, a lot of more cross-functional teams where people were communicating about a problem with lots of different experiences. They were able to think about the customer from their point of view and make sure that the experience didn't, leave, or the solution didn't leave out one little key piece of information that would make the customer more successful in the end. And that's been really exciting to see grow over time.
One of the things that we always will have a family member be chairman of the board, again, gives us that connection to the CEO. And that is our sister Kim right now. And so she meets with our CEO, once a week. And so that is a very great partnership and very necessary for especially a family that's not in daily operations. We all serve on different committees. That gives us another level of exposure to our leadership team and some other members of the company. One of the things that we got to learn is, what is our lane? Like, where does ownership get informed? Where does ownership get consulted? Who's responsible and who's accountable? In the business world, the acronym is RACI. And so we got to learn about that and really go through with our leadership team to really acknowledge where we all sit. And that right there helped build trust because, again, we're all trying to assume best intent, that we're all wanting this to be successful. And when we just get to know everybody's lane, really helps, and provides some good foundation. Kim, what were your experience?
Did learn that we needed to physically be at least at our Yakima headquarters on a more regular basis. So we as owners would go specifically just to visit in between board meetings and get time with different department heads and with different people to be able to learn about what they're working on, how, and just get it more of a one-on-one feel for each other as human beings. And that definitely helped build those relationships. Being a part of the summit annually gave us access to more of our global team. They've been coming for the summit. And then also being a part of employee barbecues and other events like that certainly helped. But I think one of the things that really helps build trust, especially when you are an owner and a director, those are pretty big hats to have on in the business system, is to be able to walk your talk when you say that you want to have best intent and you want to have great impact. You also need to be able to hear when your impact was different than your intent. And so you need to be able to give people an experience that are brave enough to give us feedback, that we welcome feedback, that we will shift and learn from it. and come differently the next time. And so we, over the years, have modeled that as owners. And there have been many people that have been brave enough in our system to be able to give us very constructive, useful feedback. And it's really helped us become better leaders.
You're in a unique position where you are remote, but that yet you have tremendous influence. And so, how do you manage that dynamic? Are there any, we talked about some of the best practices, but is there anything else that you do in order to successfully manage that dynamic?
Stephanie does this really well. And it's that she circles back to make sure that we have shared understanding. We did this one course. It was a virtual course probably during COVID. And one of the instructors mentioned that common sense isn't common. And so we can think that everybody has the same understanding, that there's common sense about why we should do this or how it should be done. But you really need to, especially when you have this distance, either relationship wise or because you're in a virtual setting, really need to make sure that you all understand exactly what was said, what you intend to do. And when you're going to accomplish it, all of those pieces, you just need to tie a bow on quite a few more things.
When we all are aligned with the clear vision, of the why we're doing things, what is, truly our, purpose, at Kwik Lock, and that it's not just from the top and being told, as we know, that was the old system. We absolutely want to have buy-in. And we want people to understand it. And so other ways that we've actually built trust is we've done different listening tours, because we do have a vision, we have a mission, and we have a core purpose, these three statements. And again, the common sense, you could think that everybody would understand them. And we really got we got some feedback that a variety of terms weren't as understandable as we thought. And so that was interesting, and that was really helpful of just doing these listening tours and showing that we do want to hear from everybody.
Yeah, we had a lot of, culture was something that we feel very passionate about. And culture in a longstanding manufacturing company where that word was never used is not something that's instantly understood. It can be, yes, let's take care of each other, but what do you mean about culture? And so we had to go back to just having those employee steering committees actually that just worked on culture. We thought we could jump right into, these are the behaviors we want, and this is what our vision and mission mean. And people would hit the ground running with, we know exactly what kind of culture we're trying to build. And we had to step back several stages to the very beginning as, what does culture mean? What does it feel like to work in a good culture? Can you describe the things you like about the place that you work? We're like, yeah, those are pieces of culture. How you treat each other, how making people feel like they matter. That's a piece of our core purpose. Knowing that their contributions will change the future. Those are kind of pieces of where we started to try to figure out what behaviors emulate those and what actions and results will come from those behaviors and connecting the dots. So that was a fun experience. And Stephanie was an owner that sat on the employee steering committees. And so she was there week after week as they were talking about these things.
One of the challenges with any managerial role is really knowing when to trust your team and just observe, when to dig deeper. So how do you decide?
One thing we do is we have little sister conversations away from the boardroom, because Stephanie and I have a really great opportunity as sisters, having very different personalities, in that we can really look at an idea or our approach from different sides and give each other pointers on what our impact might be versus our intent. So some of that time spent before we get into the meeting is really productive for us.
And like you said, we absolutely believe in our team to execute. Our lane is to hold that vision. Our lane is to be looking long term and seeing along, of course, with our CEO, but to be in partnership with that. And so again, knowing our position and knowing the areas of, like, where I go is, I know I will never want will be a CFO in our company or an engineer. Those are not my lane of genius. But I do go into the areas that I'm interested as an owner and a leader of this company is I want our company to be socially responsible. I really want our company to impact the communities that we're in, not just make a product and sell it, really be a manufacturing company that's so much more than that. Advocate for a variety of things. One of our main advocacy topics is food waste and food security. And so, that is something that really gets me up in the morning. And so really just seeing the areas that I can add value is what has worked for me. And then really allowing the team in the areas that they are absolutely very well versed to execute.
And I think, like Stephanie mentioned before, the relationship between the shareholders and the CEO and the board chair and the CEO is very important because that gives us a chance to share our vision, to share our long-term strategy as a family, to be able to hear from the CEO what is possible within the next year or so, what our team is capable of producing, when they're overloaded, when something that we want needs to wait or needs to come faster. I mean, all of those conversations and that sharing of information at that level helps us understand and trust what the team's working on. When you know that somebody has their eyes on something, then you, in our seat, which is supposed to be oversight, part of the board, then we're able to sit back in our seat. When you aren't sure what somebody's doing and you see it a big challenge ahead, then you can kind of, as a board member or as an owner, get a little anxious and you get yourself into the business in a way that isn't really as helpful.
What advice would you give to young women who are starting their career in manufacturing and want to advance it?
One of the pieces of advice that I would say is find a mentor, or a network. Going back to the spot it, or, you got to see it to be it, is I just went out to see people who are already doing and maybe an area that I'm in or just starting in and really pick, their brain. I've had lunch and learns with them. I've had coffee meetings with them. I've joined women's networks, just to support business leaders. And that has truly been very helpful. And it helps you not feel alone.
And I think also, besides maybe seeing somebody who is a step ahead of you, where you want to go, someone you admire, be brave enough to, like Stephanie is wonderful at, be brave enough to ask them, can I meet you for coffee? Can I pick your brain? I'm thinking about, taking this educational opportunity or that. Which one would you do if you went back in time? You were in my seat again. Those kind of things can be really helpful. And people are eager for those relationships to be able to share something that they've already learned. And for me, it's also been helpful. I have an executive coach right now. And so to have somebody who can work with me to think through something that maybe didn't turn out the way I wanted, a challenge that kind of went sideways, and be able to look through it and see how I can show up differently. One of the things that we can control is the energy we bring into each room we walk into. So learning about how you manage your own energy, how you're showing up, to prepare yourself. Your breath is a tool that's with you every single moment of every day. And it's a very useful tool at settling yourself and making sure that you're coming into something kind of with an energy that's inviting. But I think also for women coming into manufacturing, you do need to be honest about the fact that it still is a male-dominated industry. There are going to be unique challenges for women in this field. And so being supported by other women can really help you understand how to navigate those challenges that might be unique to you. But then also just being realistic about the fact that sometimes you can feel like it's just you, that you're a little crazy. Why are things different for me? Why is somebody who's in the same position I am having an easier time at this? And yes, we always need to look at how we're approaching something, but also understanding that everybody's unique lived experience brings unique challenges to any position you're trying to get into, and finding your way to support yourself through that is going to be important.
I would add, this is such a great topic. We love this question. The other thing that I would add as advice is, which is hard. You have to be brave, is to speak up if your company doesn't, have equal opportunities. And that's happened in our own family business. We are again at 70 years. And this last year, we just hired our first saleswoman, our first regional sales manager is a woman. And we've never had a woman on that team for, 69 years. Another great example was we have an employee, her name is Tammy, and she had always worked in production. And again, production, as Kim had said, was, a woman's area. And she really wanted to, learn about the assembly. And so she actually kind of just pushed of like, how am I supposed to get skills to actually go for that job in assembly? Where do I get them? And so she wonderfully pushed for that, and she got, skilled up. She applied for a position over there and now works over in assembly, after 18 years of being in another department. It's being brave, sometimes gonna, push or buck the system a little bit. But again, hopefully we're sharing some examples that it absolutely can be done.
Yeah, and I think especially the asking for help part, because it's easy to feel that is like a weakness. No one wants to ask for help because it makes you feel like you're not up to the task. But it's really a superpower. Looking forward, what are some of the opportunities and challenges on the horizon for QuikLock?
I think one of the opportunities is a challenge we all share, which is how do we keep attracting great talent to manufacturing? Sometimes it's very difficult when you have a lot of headquarters or manufacturing sites in rural areas to get young people to want to come into and work in those places. So we've certainly tried to figure out how can we stretch our idea of how this job can be done? How can we make sure that we have collaborative teams so that you're not just working in one department, but you're getting the chance to learn about a lot of different departments and working together as a team to come up with innovative solutions? That's energizing to a lot of people. How can we relook at a position and see whether or not there's some remote opportunity there? Do they always have to come into the office? And thinking about things like, as a business, one of the opportunities we have is to always expand on the benefits that we provide for our employees, to listen to them and find out what they want and try to stretch to be able to give them that. Is it volunteer time off, which is something that we give? We pay people to be able to go volunteer in their community, which is really energizing for a lot of people. Oftentimes teams of people will go out together to volunteer for the day, but then also to figure out, how can we expand on paid leave so that it covers more of the unique experiences people have. Some people are taking care of sick kids as well as sick parents. And just thinking about all the things that are hitting people in their lives and how can we make our positions more attractive and also more responsive to their needs.
What do you view as some of the benefits and maybe drawbacks of being based in Washington?
Well, obviously the beginning started with our grandfather inventing a closure to close a bag of Washington State apples. And so the benefit to, of course, be in Washington is to be close to the customer. Washington State has been known to provide this, country with at least 90% of the apples. Probably we're at 60% to the world. And so being close to the customer, really building those relationships, knowing in real time the challenges and how to pivot and be nimble has really been a huge benefit. But we are in a very fast-paced world now. This is not our grandfathers and fathers' business anymore. Things are moving at a lightning speed. And so with that, we have, as a family, the long-term view. We want to be aware of the limitations that to get that talent that will keep us, going on to the fourth and fifth generation would be very challenging coming from, a more rural area where we are based right now in Washington. And so we are aware of that. Kim actually, again, being on her chairman of the board network, is really talking to other female family business owners who are, again, steps ahead and seeing already what they're doing.
I'm one of 7 kids, and so I've done projects and business with them, and I know it can definitely be challenging at times. So you two are not just coworkers, but you're also siblings. So I'm just curious how you guys balance that. Because obviously, you can't fire each other as a sibling.
Well, I would say that when we began this journey in 2015, we have a third sister that we all three got together. And what was our main goal is we really wanted to take this opportunity to work together. And so what did that mean and look like for everybody? Where are your interests? How much are you wanting to be involved and engaged? What are you comfortable with? So we did that right at the beginning. We also three, wonderfully get along prior to this experience. So that really helped. I know that there are a lot of families out there that they go, I love my siblings, but I could not work with them. We really enjoy each other. I've traveled many times in places together, but again, we wanted to not make assumptions. As we alluded to, we are three very different personalities, and I think one of the wonderful things that we have done for each other is we have allowed everybody to show up the way that they are comfortable with, that they need to be. And we've really respected that. Like Kim said, we do talk on the sidelines. We have our owners meetings and we get all that out if there are obviously some disagreements, because we do know the value of coming as a united front. Again, we have heard there, in family businesses, there can be a lot of unfortunate toxic energy, and that is absolutely nothing we want to bring or anybody else to feel.
We were fortunate also in that we'd already gone into our 40s before our dad passed. We had a chance to work on our relationship with each other for a long time, and got to the point where we let each other just be who we are. That's definitely a blessing. But we did realize a couple years in that we needed to at least have an annual check-in just to really make sure, how's it still going for you? How's the way that you're engaging, working for you? Has everything shifted? Because we don't want to accidentally have somebody sitting there quietly, building a little bit of resentment or discomfort about something. And so we make sure we give opportunities for us to speak frankly on a regular basis. And our other sister, Melissa, this is not her jam, showing up and talking to a lot of people, but she very much is engaged on the board level, is chair of committees, and enjoys that, comes to the annual meetings, the annual summits, and engages with employees on a regular basis, but she doesn't do this sort of thing.
This was a fantastic conversation, and just thank you to Kim and Stephanie for joining us and just sharing your story and your insight into the perspective of women in manufacturing. I think is just truly inspiring for someone like me or just someone who's listening to it. I know a lot of people who are just starting out or have been in the industry for a while will definitely gain something from this. So just thank you for your time, and I appreciate you just talking with us today.
Yeah, thank you
Thanks
so much.
Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Jason, so much for this opportunity. We really enjoyed speaking with you today. And we very much enjoyed being a part of Women in Manufacturing. It's such a unique network, and it's great to be able to tap into their events and be a part of this conversation today.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Produce podcast so that you don't miss any upcoming conversations with manufacturing leaders.